Hi guys, it's John back again with another inbox review. Today I'm doing something slightly different. I might do an inbox review similar to this style as and when the opportunity arises, because today I'm going to do a comparison build, an inbox review and final reveal on two Airfix kits, one of which is an old tool and one of which is a new tool. And as you can see, we're looking at a Messerschmitt BF 109 G6. First of all, we'll go through the boxing history just to ascertain what the score is and where everything originated from. The original kit actually originates from the Messerschmitt ME109F. This was one of the first generation Airfix release kits, and as you can see, the quality of the kit was pretty horrendous. But the idea for the new tool release, which came out, this kit was actually released in 1956 originally, but the retool of the G6 kit that came out was 1962, and it was actually derived around the idea and origins of this particular model. Now, I'm not 100% sure whether they revamped the tool or whether they just laid out the design of the tool on the original tool but made it an awful lot better. But the quality of this kit compared with the release from 1962, which was this one, this kit was 100 times better. And I'm looking at the mould inside this kit, and I'm guessing this isn't the original mould that I've got either, because the original mould that I've got from my release looks a little bit different to that. But this kit, I'm pretty sure, was revamped from the original mould, and this was the ME109G, and I think this kit was revamped from the ME109F. One of the things that's interesting that a lot of people may not realise is that Messerschmitts were made in either ME format or BF format, and I'll explain the difference to that in a minute when we go into the G6 boxing reviews. This was the 1962 release. This is on a Type 2 header. The original kit was released on a Type 1 header, and the kit that I'm actually doing an inbox review on is the card kit variant of this. This was a 1965 bag kit release of the G6, and I think you can see instantaneously that the parts in this kit are definitely different to the 109, the ME109G. But again, whether they've been revamped from the original mould, I'm not sure, I can't tell. But this is definitely the mould that you get throughout the series, right up to the retool in 2009. This was 1965. This kit was released on a bag kit. Now, a lot of people, I don't know, maybe they've just gone over the fact that ME and BF 109s are the same plane. Well, to all intents and purposes they were, but the terminology of the Messerschmitt ME109 was pretended to the aircraft manufactured by William Messerschmitt's factory, and they tended to be ME 109s, and they tended to be the early marks like the 109A, the B, the C and the Ds. But when the Ds came into full swing production, and especially the ML models, the E variants, the aircraft became the BF 109. And it's funny that on this particular release it's called ME BF 109G6. Maybe Airfix didn't know what the hell to call it, but this is a Messerschmitt BF 109G6, and the difference between the ME and BF prefix is that Messerschmitt himself, his factory was quite a small concern, and it could not cope with the large demands the Luftwaffe had on Messerschmitt aircraft, especially the 109s and the 110s. And so the aircraft were license built by Blon & Voss and Feischler, who set up a manufacturing company, and Blon & Voss and Feischler amalgamated to become Blon & Feischler, and they produced the 109s, the 110s and a couple of other variant aircraft which Messerschmitt designed. And that's where the idea of ME and BF 109 Messerschmitts came from. It's the difference between the factory prefixes that actually built the aircraft. So that's 1965. That's the bag kit release of the BF 109 G6. This is the 1970 release by MPC. This was the American label that released the Airfix models in America. That was released in 1970, and the subject of the first tooling is this one, Note the price there, 39 pence. Yep, 1973, although this kit was probably sold in around about 1978. The price of Series 1 kits were about 40p in those days. So this is the card kit. This is the subject of the model I'll actually be doing an in-box review on. I'll also be doing the retool as a comparison, but we'll go through the boxing history still anyway. 1973 was the card kit or blister pack release, and then you went to 1973's co-release, where the aircraft was released as a dogfight double with the Bristol Beaufighter. This was a Series 3 kit, where the amalgamation of the Series 1 and Series 2 model was sold as a boxed dogfight double, and in this case it was the 109G6 and the Bristol Beaufighter TF Mark 10. 1973 went to 74 when MPC re-released the kit again, this time in a slightly revised box with MPC written on the right hand side bottom corner, and 1/72 constant scale being itemised on the bottom of the box there as well. 1974 went through to 1978 when Series 1 kits were sold in boxes for the first time. Note the elongated Airfix logo on the top left hand corner, and the price of the kit in 1978 was 45p. 1978 went through to 1981, and Palitoy, when Palitoy purchased Airfix, MB Games and Palitoy were the European hosts for they often release Series 1 and Series 2 kits as snap and glue models. Now if you can manage to get hold of a snap and glue model of the 109 or even some of the other kits that they released, they're actually very, very marketable and quite collectible because they're quite rare now. So that's the 81 snap and glue offer, and of course Palitoy also released in 1982 the blueprint boxing, which was very common for Palitoy kits, and they tended to sell an awful lot of their kits with these style boxings where they put the model on top of a blueprint. 1982 led to 1991, where the kits were revamped and sold under the Heller and Humbrol ownership, and the kits boxings were changed where they had the original picture, but it was surrounded by a white border, and then they went also back to the circular, like the sphere-shaped Airfix logo in red, white and black. 1991 went through to 1994, where the size and the shape of the box changed. This is the BF109G6 under Heller's sales, where the boxes for Series 1 and 2 kits were all the same size. 1994 led through to 1996, where again you have just basically a revised box, same shape, same everything, still keeping the Series 1 of course. And 1996 went through to 1997, where the Dogfight Double was re-released under the Dogfight Doubles starter pack format. Same picture, but you had like a card on the back of the box with the paint guide and everything on the back of the box there. Again, this particular format of Dogfight Doubles are getting quite rare and collectible. 1997 went through to 1998, where the 109 was sold as a starter pack. These Humbrol paints, they aren't too bad actually. They're not as bad as the Airfix acrylics, but these aren't too bad. And the cement is okay as well. So if you manage to get this type of format box, it's not a bad option. The brush, yeah, the brush isn't very good. No, I wouldn't keep the brush for very long. 1998 went through to 1998 Air and Space Museum at Smithsonian in America. This is again another starter kit where you had paintbrush, glue and paint all included in the box. And these were only sold in the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum in Washington DC. Now then, 1998 breaks through into 2004, and this was the first of a style of packaging and boxing that Humbrol and Heller decided to venture into toward the end of their ownership of Airfix, where they incorporated several different types of kit in the same box. And this was a 90 Years of Fighters triple pack, where it incorporated a P-38 Lightning, a P-51D Series 2 Mustang, and a BF109G6 Series 1 Messerschmitt. Again, this particular style of box is quite collectible, but not so rare as people might think. 2004 went to 2008, where you had virtually the last packaged rendition of the BF109G6 in Series 1. Again, this was the Dogfight Double. This included all the starter sets with the brushes, the glue and all the paints to build the kits inside the box. Note the price of the kit has changed to £18.50 for a Series 3 kit. This was 2008, wasn't that long ago, was it? Anyway, 2008 was the last rendition release of the original Series 1, and in 2009, when Hornby Productions bought Airfix Lock, Stock and Barrel, they retooled the Messerschmitt BF109G6 and sold it in this format with 3 different options here, you can see. Now this is a brand new tool, it's a brand new kit, it's not a revamp or a retool of the original mould, it's a brand new model, and I will be going through what the differences are and whether, in my opinion, I think it's worth buying, because this kit is Series 2, it's not Series 1 anymore. So, you know, you would expect it to be a much better model, wouldn't you? So we'll look into that in a minute when we go through the parts and the instructions and everything else. 2009 went through to 2014, and this is the present release packaging of the BF109G6, and this is the format of box that I've actually got to in box review as well. One of the things I want to bring your attention to, I'll bring your attention to when we have a look at the box in a minute, but yeah, there's a few things with this particular kit which I need to talk about and that make you aware of. We'll take this picture off and leave you with a nice image here of the BF109G. This is, I think, is a G4. I think it's one of the restored flying condition Messerschmitts that fly in the air show circuits. Not sure where it's flying from, but I just want to bring your attention to the table. So I'll just pan the camera around and down so that you can have a look and see what we're actually looking at, and there we are. Let's just spin that around so you can get a good idea. There we go. There's the 2 kits in all their glory. Just pull that back a bit, pan it back. There we go. There. With a bit of luck, it'll hold. Right, here's the 2 kits. We've got the card blister pack kit Series 1. This is the old tool, as I mentioned before. Note the light blue plastic that you get in the kit. This was very common of a lot of RAF and German aircraft sold by Airfix in the 70s. They tended to market them in light blue plastic. Even right up to Series 4, the Heinkel HE111, and even Series 5 and 6, the HE177 was marketed in blue plastic. And the second kit is the retool. This is the 2014 release of the new tool, BF109G6, under the Hornby Productions release. So we'll have a look at these kits very, very quick. Yeah, we'll compare them, shall we? Let's have a look. First of all, the instructions. I like going through the instructions first of all because it's quite interesting. We'll open the 2 boxes up so I can compare them as we go. This is a very interesting idea, an idea that I sort of like the idea of. Yeah, I like the idea of this. Let's go through and compare, shall we? Right. I'll have a look at those in a minute. The instructions. The Series 1 instructions are quite plain and simple. They build up in 5 steps. They're quite easy and simple and straightforward to follow. In section 1, in the Series 1 kit, you've got the propeller assembly with a spinner. The propeller had a 20mm cannon that actually fired through the spinner boss on the 109, and this carried through from the E right through to the K variants. Section 2, you've got the pilot and the pilot seat, not an awful lot to write home about there. In section 3, you've got the airframe assembly. Note on the Series 1 kit, you've just got a pilot and pilot seat, and that constitutes the entire interior's detail. There is, I suppose, a slight lip here on the fuselage here that produces your rear bulkhead, although it's not an awful lot to write home about. The wings are they're in 2 parts. The upper wing obviously encasing the wheel wells, and then the propeller will actually rotate, which is, yeah, I suppose it's a nice and general idea of those days, and you know, most kits that you buy have rotating propellers. In section 4, the tail impennage goes into place, tail wheel, and you have an option here for the oil cooler, which goes on the side, whether you want a tropical variant, or a I'm not sure whether that's a high altitude variant or a standard variant, but a lot of G variant 109s had different size oil coolers on the side here, and they fed the oil into the supercharger to produce additional power from the engine. And then you have a standard cockpit. The cockpit you'll have a look at in a minute, which on the Series 1 kit was not particularly fantastic. And in Section 5 you basically do all the armament fits and the main undercarriage oleos and wheels which go into place there. One of the nice features I find on this kit, the Series 1 kit, is that you have an option here for a drop tank or a bomb on the underside here, which fits on 2 location pins on the underside of the fuselage, which is a nice touch. It was a nice touch to the original kit. Was quite, impressed with that. That was quite good. And on the back you've got your colour guide and transfer ID, positioning ID, and the call outs for the paints and everything. It was interesting that on the 2 different variants you have the Sicilian campaign variant from southern Italy and the home defence of Germany. The actual camo pattern changes, but the colours don't, which I always thought was quite interesting. But the colour for the upper fuselage on the Sicilian version was actually darker than the home defence variant, which is interesting. But that's the colour call out on the back of the card, which is quite nice. And on the instructions for the Series 2 new toolkit, you have a set of instructions which again is quite typical of Hornby release kits. They're very typical of this. Information and gumph on the kit, on the front, on the aircraft itself, and specifications, top speed, whatnot, it's all itemised there. And you've got an assembly instructions guide there in English, and then you've got lots and lots of other languages, quite straightforward and common. And then you've got an assembly icon instruction guide, which gives you different symbols to tell you what to do at certain stages of the instructions, which is also quite nice. And then you come to the actual plans to build the kit. And this is one of the things that I actually found quite almost surprised, because the new tool kit actually to me is a little bit disappointing. It builds up in 9 steps, and as you can see the 9 steps are again pretty straightforward, just like the Series 1 card kit was. Step 1, you've got the pilot and the pilot seat. It is slightly better shaped, and the pilot is slightly better than the original pilot. But it's basically a pilot seat and a pilot that constitutes the internals of this particular kit. And then in Section 2 you've got the fuselage assembly, which you note the only thing that goes inside is the pilot and the pilot seat. He doesn't sit on location pins anymore. He actually has location pins that go in holes in the sides of the fuselage, and then you have to locate the pilot into the holes on the other side. And then you've got a 3-piece propeller, just like the Series 1 one, and the cannon goes through the spinner. It's exactly the same. We'll have a look at the actual parts in a minute. And then you've got a 3-piece wing instead of two-piece wings, which I suppose is slightly better. But the upper halves of the wings still constitute the wheel wells, although the wheel wells appear to be slightly better shaped on the new tool kit. That's Section 3. Section 4 is the assembly of the airframe. We've got the tail planes there and the wing assembly. The upper half of the mid-section of the wing there forms the floor pan of the fuselage, and it's not fantastically detailed, is it? Section 5 and 6 are the oleo main undercarriage wheels, and again there's something that surprised me here, is that the undercarriage oleos are actually attached to the doors in one piece, and I'd have thought they'd have done a bit better than that, where you could have had maybe the undercarriage oleos as a separate part, so you could actually paint them much more easily. Then in Section 8 you're fitting 1 oil cooler, or is it a ram for the supercharger? I'm not 100% sure. And then you've got 1 cockpit, so that's interesting. When we go into the parts, you've actually got 2 cockpits here. I think the other cockpit is for the earlier release kit, and there's an antenna there that goes on the top of the radio. And then Section 9 you've got the loadout, and the loadout constitutes not very much. You've got 2 cannons that fit under the wings. I think they were 30mm cannons. You've got an oil cooler that fits under the engine cowling there, and a tail wheel. And then you've got a drop tank Yeah, and that's it. Or undercarriage up. Not an awful lot. On the paint guide is split between two different variants. You've got the German Home Defence variant, which was flown by an equivalent to a Staff Sergeant, Alfred Saurel, which is the Home Defence of Germany, Luftwaffe. That's the variant there. Note the colours are not green and green, they are grey and grey. So the original colours for the the Series 1 kit were actually wrong. Most Home Defence Messerschmitt 109s were actually, like the FW190s, were actually painted two-tone grey, and a grey two-tone split camouflage pattern for the upper surfaces of the fuselage, and they were a strange grey-blue colour on the underside surfaces. Not all of them had these yellow patterns and theatre colours, but a lot of them did. And then also on the other variant that's covered by this kit is a Swiss Air Force aircraft flown in 1945 as part of Flieger Company number 7, and this was a G6 variant. A lot of these aircraft were actually sold to Switzerland, but some of them were commandeered by Switzerland after the war as well to bolster their numbers. But that's basically the two different variants. The propeller there, as you can see, the propeller there is quite a complicated paint design, as it's a spiral design, so when the spinner rotates you can see the spiral feeding around. So one of the things that strikes me about the new tool kit is that parts wise it's not a huge improvement over the original Series 1 kit. Now I'm just going to undo the staples. I put some staples in here because I wanted to staple this up to make sure I didn't lose any parts. And I'll just take the staples off. If I can, just get a paper clip and see if I can lift this staple up for you so I can get this blister pack out without damaging the card underneath. Shouldn't be too hard. There's one. That one's damaged, so it shouldn't be hard at all. And then we can get these parts out and have a look at them. Sorry about this, it takes a couple of seconds, I know, but I hope it'll be worth it. That's that one, and that should come out quite easily as well. Of course, doesn't want to. They always never want to, do they? Right, that's those parts out. We'll just pop this out. Take this plastic out and have a look at it in a minute. Now, I do remember building this kit before. I do remember having this kit once before and building it. I think it was built for an ATC diorama that I built with another couple of members of staff and 3 cadets. It was quite a while ago. It was over 10 years ago. Well, that's unfortunate. I'll have to fix that. That is very unfortunate. Yeah, right. Let's have a look at that in a minute. You've got a nice display stand in the Series 1 kit. Of course, early models, Airfix release, they always had display stands, which is a nice touch. And then we'll have a quick look at the decals. The decals on the Series 1 kit, I mean, they weren't great, but I'll be honest with you, these are pretty horrific. I think they've aged, damaged a little bit. I don't think I'm going to be able to use them anyway. But we'll have a look, we'll see. I would like to build this kit up true to the original release. So it might be quite nice to do yellow 3 or yellow 14. But there are the decals, basically. These are 1973 vintage decals. They're not that bad, actually. The actual register on them is quite good. The backing film doesn't look too thick. But there aren't very many of them, and they're not particularly detailed, not particularly difficult. No, as I said, there aren't very many of them, so decaling this kit is not going to be very hard. But the thing I do notice about them is that they are a little bit thick. You can feel them quite easily, but I think a lot of that is because the backing film is on old style paper, so we'll have to see how they go on. But yeah, see how they go on later when we're building the kit. So the decals on the Series 1 kit, yeah, they're about 1973 vintage. What do we expect? The decals on the 2013 release, if I can get them out of the box, there are a couple of extra stencils and markings on it, but to be honest with you, there aren't that many on here. There aren't that many decals. There are some common to both stencils in here. As you can see, they're very small. I'm hoping I can get that camera to focus on those. But they're nicely pronounced and rendered. The register on them is really, really good. And there's no ID here as to whether they're made by Cartograph, but they don't have to look like Cartograph markings. They're very, very smooth, very thin. The backing film is very, very clear, and I think they'll go on really nicely. But I am concerned that there aren't very many of them on the sheet, which is a shame. Now then, parts. You'll have to excuse me, I've never done a comparison build in box view before, so you'll have to excuse me if it looks a bit haphazard. We'll do the part. What I'd really like to do is I'd really like to get the parts of the Series 2 kit out first, and then we'll go through them and compare them with the Series 1 kit, because this is really interesting. This is one of the things I found that was really interesting when I went through them originally. We'll look at the transparencies first. Here's the Series 1 transparency. Now I'm going to put it in my hand and try and get you to see it. It's quite clear. It's not particularly thin, but it is pretty typical of 1973 style transparencies of the time. Nothing to write home about, right? But it is correctly shaped and everything. It's all right. And here are the transparencies from the new tool. And the new tool is interesting because it's exactly the same shape as the original tool canopy. So the original tool canopy was pretty accurate. There's not a huge amount of difference between the two canopies. I think you only use this canopy. I'm not sure which one it is actually. It's either this, obviously it's either this one or this one. But you only use one canopy from this kit for both variants. The other canopy must go on the other kit, the 2009 release. But these canopies, apart from the frames and the fact that they're a bit more crystal clear in terms of moulding and everything, and they're slightly thinner, they're not that different from the original kit, are they? So that's the first thing I noticed about this particular model. The second thing, I'll just show you a little bit of damage that I've noticed on this particular kit. The Series 1 kit spinner is a little bit damaged, as you can see there, but it's not something I can't repair because the part is there, it's just snapped in, so I should be able to sort that. It's just snapped in slightly. Should be able to sort that before cementing the propeller in place, but that's basically the spinner. The spinner on the new tool is that's the old tool. And let's try and put these together so you can see them. That's the old tool spinner, and that's the new tool spinner. Not a lot of difference there either, is there? There's a definite ridge on the new tool spinner. Here it's like a little disc around where the tip of the spinner is a separate part, but it's moulded into the one part on the kit, which is interesting. So there's not that much different. The finish on the spinner is slightly better, but it's not 100%. On the old toolkit, the pilot was like that. There's a bit of flash on him as well, which I was surprised about. This kit isn't that old from the mould. But he's a typical 1970s pilot that you got in an awful lot of fighters of the era, Series 1 especially. Yeah, so that's the pilot for there. And here's the pilot in the new toolkit. And he's not that good, is he? That is really shocking, because he is quite reminiscent of a lot of frog pilots. I mean, he's quite detailed. He's got lots of lines on him and everything. But he's a funny shape. I was very surprised about him as well. He's very, yeah, he's not what I expected. The wheels, Series 1, old tool. The wheels are pretty plain, right? Not much to home about. Not much to write home about whatsoever there. And there are the wheels from the new toolkit. And again, they're slightly better finished, but there's not a lot of detail in them. There is a little hole there, which I think 109s did have. But there's not an awful lot of difference between those either. And then we get to the real guts of the kit. I just want to show you one more minor detail, because I don't really need to go through an awful lot of this, because a lot of these parts are pretty much of a muchness. I'll be honest with you. Even the new tool kits, you know, to all intents and purposes, I don't think they're a huge marked improvement over the original. There's the original propeller. And the original propeller on the 109, that propeller is pretty good. On the new tool, that looks decidedly odd. It looks too paddle-like. It's a bit thick, and to me it doesn't look quite right. It's too thick. And the other thing that surprised me, I'll look at the underside of the wings. Here's the underside of the wings. Right. Now on the old toolkit you've got quite a few rivets. Hoping you can see there. You can see the rivets there. The line of the wheel well and the radiators there that are under the wings. And then I'm going to try and show you the new tool wing, and it's got lots of nice recessed panel lines, but there's no rivets, which is quite nice because I don't think the 109 was anything but flush riveted, so you shouldn't really see them. But the lines are quite heavy, aren't they? Can you see how heavy they are? I would not be worried about painting that with a brush because they look quite heavy. And the shape of the wing itself, it's exactly the same. So the original tool, I think, although the wheel well is slightly too big on the new one, I think this is more correct. But the actual line on the Series 1 kit was pretty good. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the tail planes. The tail planes on the Series 1 kit were like this. Again, there's a few rivets on them, and the ribbing effect on the rudders is quite pronounced, so you might have to sand a little bit of that down, but the actual outline of the tail plane wasn't too bad. And there's the outline of the new tool tail planes. Can you see? They differ quite a bit, don't they, in the rudder shape. The actual line of the rudder, very, very different indeed. Turn it over so you can see. So I think the new tool is better shaped in terms of overall shape. It's at that god-awful propeller. But the old tool wasn't that bad. It wasn't that incorrect. So, you know, I think they did pretty well. And the fuselage, here's the old tool fuselage, the light blue one, as you can see there. There's no internal detail whatsoever. Just a cockpit seat and the pilot. Quite a few rivets on there that you can see. See them, they'll probably need sanding down a little bit because this thing was flush riveted, and the fabric covered rudder there is quite nicely reproduced. I quite like what they've done with that. But the exhaust nozzles are all one piece, but they're quite nicely defined, aren't they? You know, they're not too bad. The shape of the actual forward fuselage there is quite good too, which is quite nice. Although this panel here it's a little bit strange because the original kit, the original aircraft wasn't that pronounced. And then you have the line of the new tool fuselage, and that's the old tool fuselage to compare it with. Can you see them? The outline wasn't horrendously wrong, but the new tool kit is definitely better finished, and it is slightly better in line. But there's not a lot of difference between the two. And the thing that I find incredible is that there's not a lot of difference in the detail and the quality of the kit between the two models. The only major difference, I think, between the Series 2 new toolkit and the old toolkit is that the new toolkit seems to be a little better finished. The parts seem to be a little better. There's recessed panel lines, which is better. It's always better than rivets, recessed panel lines. But the actual build-up of the kit is no better detailed than the original. You know, when you go back to some of the retools that Airfix have had released recently, like the Hurricane especially is superb. The new Mustang, the new FW190, they are absolutely fantastic kits, really, really well detailed. And this one is just, to me, it's a big disappointment, and I really was disappointed in the outcome of this kit. So anyway, we'll go through that with the conclusions when I sum up the conclusions, but that's the parts on all the models. I'm just going to put these back in so that I can seal this back up in a few minutes after I close the video down. But I just want to get all these parts in here so that I know where everything is. Very, very disappointed in that spinner. Well, I don't think it's going to be a huge problem. I think it will repair quite satisfactorily. Sorry about this, it won't take very long. Also, the general line of the cockpit, the pilot seat in the new toolkit is actually better than the old toolkit. But I think the bomb on the Series 1 kit was no worse than the bomb on the Series 2 kit. The drop tank is slightly better on the retool kit as well. Anyway, I'll just bring these into view so you can see this. And what I want to do is I just want to go through some of the gump on the two models and then go through some options and costs for you so you can see, and then what my overall conclusions are. The models on review today are the Airfix Messerschmitt BF109 G6 comparison, are the Series 1 the new and old tool Series 1 G6 models from Airfix. Series 1 serial number being 01006-1 and the new tool serial number being A02029-A, both scaled in 1/72. The decals are for two versions in the Series 1 old toolkit. There are Yellow 3 BF109 G6 Luftwaffe Home Defence of Germany 1944 and Yellow 14 the BF109 G6 of JG53 serving the Luftwaffe in Sicily in 1943. In the new toolkit you have Yellow 6 BF109 G6 flown by Oberfeldwebel Alfred Saro of JG3 Squadron 9 Bad Vorreshoven in Germany, September 6, 1943, and a BF109 G6 of Flieger Company 7, Swiss Air Force, 1945. In the Series 1 kit there are 37 parts on 4 light blue plastic sprues and a part on a single plastic sprue, totaling 38 parts. And in the new tool there are 39 parts on 3 grey plastic sprues and 2 parts on a clear plastic sprue, totaling 41 parts. The options and costs, if you have the options and costs for all the 109s, it would take me 2 hours to go through them. So basically I've just done the options and costs on the 109G series variants of the kit of the 109 itself from various different companies, because virtually everyone's had a go at a 109 from one time or another. In 1/150th scale, Bosch do a BF109, Eco do a BF109, which is actually the Bosch kit, Hobby Miniatures do a BF109, which is actually a Bosch kit, and Lindbergh do a BF109, which is also a Bosch kit. I have no details of the costs of these kits or how easy or difficult they are to obtain, but there is a company called Sankyo who also do a BF109, which again I have no details, but it's definitely a different mould from the Bosch kit. One of the things that's interesting about the Bosch kit is that the variant of the 109, because the rendition of the 109 is so weird, it's impossible to tell what variant of 109 it is, but it could be a 109F or a G. In 144 scale, Edouard do a BF109G, again no details of prices on that. F-Toys do a BF109G and that retails for about £10, and Mark 1 models do a BF109G1, a G2 and a G4, and again I've got no details of values on that one either. In 1/100th scale you can get a Faller ME109, which again is so bad you can't really tell what variant it is. Fuji do a BF109G, Marusan do a BF109G, and Roskopf do a BF109G, and a company called UPC also cover the Marusan BF109G kit. Again, I have no details of costs on any of those kits from 1/100th scale. Probably the most popular scale covered by any of the companies is the 72nd scale range. Airfix do a BF109 G6 old tool retailing for between £5 and £12. The new tool G6 variant is about £9. They also do an Airfix BF109 G6 and Bristol Bowfighter Dogfight double kit, which is about £10 to £20. And Airfix also do a 90 Years of Fighters boxing, which also retails for between £10 and £20, although I have seen this on eBay for as little as £5 or £6 occasionally, but usually it's about £10 or £12. The Academy BF109 G1 and G14 kits are about £9 each. A model do a BF109 G2, again I've got no details of how much it costs, and Aurora do the Hella rendition of the BF109 G6, and again I've got no costings for that kit either. AZ models do a new and an old tool like Airfix do. The old tool was a G5, G6 and G14, and they retail for between £11 and £15. And they also do a new tool which covers a G1, 2, 6, 10 and 14 variants, and they go for between £12 and £14. Duyusha cover the Hobby Boss kit, and Encore models do the Hella kit. Again, I've got no pricings for those kits either. Fine Molds, BF109 G2, 4, 6 and 10, they retail for about £20. Generally, these kits of the different variants of G models are generally different boxings. They're not different versions in the same kit. They're generally different boxings. Hales do the Hasegawa kit of the BF109G, that retails for about £15, and Hasegawa does the BF109 G6 and 14, and that retails between £15 and £30. Hawk do a BF109G, which retails between £40 and £45, and Hawkeye Design do a BF109 G10 in resin and white metal. Again, I've got no pricings on that kit either, but it does look really nice. Not easy to build though, I wouldn't have thought. Hella's rendition of the G2, 5 and 6 of the BF109 is £10 to £15, and Hobby Boss's BF109 G2, 6 and 10 are £8 to £10. Hobby Craft do a BF109 G12, which is actually the Intech kit, which retails for about £10, and Intech's BF109 G2, 6, 12 and 14 boxings are between £7 and £10. Italeri do a BF109 G6 for about £8, and KP Kovasafodi Prestigeoff, or often called KP Models, do a BF109 G6 retailing between £10 and £12. MPM cover the G12 variant, which is actually the Intech kit, for £11, and Mastercraft do two kits. They do their own mould of the G2, 4, 5, 6 and 14. Again, no costings on that, but they also cover the G2, 4, 5, 6, 12 and 14, which is the Mastercraft kit, but the G12 variant is the Intech kit, and they all retail for between £5 and £7. Model X do a BF109 G2, 5 and 6, which is actually the Hella model. Again, no pricing on that one available. And Polystill do a BF109 G6, which is retails about £7 to £10. SMER do a BF109 G6 and 14, which retails for about £10 to £12. Not sure whose kit that is, but it's probably a Hella kit. Testers do a BF109G, which is the Hawk kit. Vulcan Models do the BF109G. ZTS Plastique do a BF109 G2 and 6, which is actually the Mastercraft kit. And Zlenik do a BF109 G10, all of which I don't have any pricings available for. And Zvezda do a BF109 G6 for about £10. In 1/55th scale, which is often sold as a 1/48 scale, Starfix do a BF109 G6 for retails between £5 and £10. And in 48th scale, AMG Models do a BF109 G6 and 12, and AMT Ertel do a BF109G, which is actually the Otaki kit, and that retails, again I've got no details on that either. Academy do a 48 scale BF109 G2, 6 and 14, which is a Hobbycraft kit, retails for about £15 to £20. RI do a BF109G, which is an Otaki kit, and Astro Kit do a BF109G, which is a Fujimi kit. Both have no details of pricings on those either. Edward do a BF109 G2, 4, 5, 6, 10 and 14, which is £15 to £26. Falcon do a BF109 G12, which I again have no details of the pricings on that. Fujimi's BF109G5, 610 and the G or K combi kit is between £15 and £20. Hasegawa do a 48th BF109G2, 4, 610 and 14, which is actually the Revell kit. Price is between £25 and £30. Hobby Boss does a BF109G2 for £16 to £25, and Hobbycraft do a BF109G2, 3, 4, 6 and 14. Again, I have no pricings on those. Italeri cover the BF109G6, which is a Hobbycraft kit, for between £10 and £20, and Jay's Models do a BF109G12, which is a two-seat variant of the trainer. Again, I have no costings on that one either. KA Models do a BF109G6 and 10, which is the Fujimi kit, prices at £23 to £25. Matchbox do a BF109G in 48 scale, which is actually the Otaki kit, price between £10 and £20. Micro Ace do a BF109G 5 and 6 for £15 to £25. Monogram does the BF109G, which is the Revell kit, for £15. Otaki cover the BF109G, which is £12 to £15. Sorry, £15 to £20. Pegasus Hobbies do a VAC-form kit, which is BF109G6 for £12 to £15. Revell cover the BF109G6 and 10, which is £10 to £15. And Tamiya does a BF109G6 for £34. Unimodel do a BF109G4, 6 and 14 for £16. And Ventura Publications do a BF109G14, which is a resin and white metal kit. Again, I've got no details of pricings on that, but I'm guessing it's not going to be cheap. Svezda do a BF109G6, and that retails for about £15. There are a few 32nd scale kits. 21st Century Toys do a BF109G14, and that retails between £18 and £25. Combat Models do a BF109G14, which is a VAC-form kit. No details of pricing on that. Hasegawa does a BF109G2, 4, 6, 10 and 14, which retails for about £40. Monogram do a BF109G4, which is the Hasegawa kit, which retails, again, I've got no details for that. The Revell kit does a BF109G4, G and a G6 and a G10, which is £19 to £65. And Trumpeter do a really, really nice BF109G2, a 6 or a 10, for about £25 to £50. In 24 scale, you can get an ID Models BF109G6 and 10, again, no details of pricings on that. And Trumpeter do a really, really nice G2, G6 or G10 for £25, or anything up to £85. Conclusions. Now then, I never thought I would say that a retooling from Hornby was not so good, as most of them are excellent, but I have to say it with this one. The new tool kit is better than the older one, but only in finish and on the airframe, and there is no interior details and no pitot tube. The pitot tube is completely omitted. The prop looks decidedly odd. The oleo legs from the main undercarriage is one part with the doors, and I think Airfix could have done better here, but unfortunately there are better kits that are older and cheaper on the market, i.e. the 72nd Italieri. The Hella kit is even better, but the AZ models are really, really nice. I can honestly say that it will be an interesting comparison build for these two kits, and the old tool for nostalgia reasons, and the new tool to see why it has such bad reviews from pro modelers and reviewers. So sorry, I can't really recommend either of these two models. If you want a really decent kit, I would strongly suggest you go for, I would say, the Svezda model in 48th, the Trumpeter kit in 32nd, and in 72nd, as I said before, I would definitely go for either the Italeri, the Hella kit, but the kit that seems to be pro with all the pro reviewers and builders is the AZ models. They seem to be really, really nice. I'm not sure what they're like quality-wise, plastic-wise and all that, because I've never actually seen any, but they do get really good reviews, so they look quite impressive. So that's the in-box review, comparison review for these two models. I hope this video has been of some use, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I'll try and answer as many as I can, and I'll see you for the next in-box review. Thanks for now. Bye-bye.